making sure there's a healthy line of communication between the Suns and the Valley Suns, so that you're making sure you're hitting on the things that those guys who are, whether they're assigned or whether they're two ways, that they're able to go into a Suns game and do what's asked of them.
Stephen PridGeon-Garner here of PHNX Suns, here talking with Valley Suns head coach Paul Jesperson. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing well. We've got about 10 games left, month left in the season, so trying to finish it out strong.
For sure. All right, we'll go ahead and make it general before we start diving into players specifically. So my first question for you, just the season at large, what has it taught you? What have you maybe taken away from all of your experiences in your first season as head coach?
Yeah, I've learned a ton. Obviously, with this being my first year in this seat, you're always, as a coach, looking for competitive advantages in a bunch of different areas, whether that's through how you teach on the court, how you watch film, how you break that stuff down, and then when you get out to the court, trying to be creative, keep it energetic, but still hit the things that are important to success, both offensively and defensively. So I think I've learned a ton in a lot of those areas. And I think we've taken the program in a step in the right direction in a lot of those areas as well.
For sure. And into the step in the right direction part, I think that's a perfect transition for skill development. Being in the G League with all the developmental things that you're kind of being tasked with getting guys up to speed with so that they can then get to the big league level. What's maybe stood out most to you, or that you maybe have learned about that particular process of skill development? And what's maybe something that you might share with someone that is kind of curious about what exactly that is and how to know if it is working or if it's not working?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing tied to the Suns organization and other organizations in the NBA is just the communication piece, making sure there's a healthy line of communication between the Suns and the Valley Suns, so that you're making sure you're hitting on the things that those guys who are, whether they're assigned or whether they're two ways, that they're able to go into a Suns game and do what's asked of them. So I think that ties into short and long-term intentions, making sure that guys are hitting those, making sure you're tracking those in the right way, and then setting aside time, whether it's pre-practice, post-practice, to work on that stuff, and then you obviously build that into your practice as well.
I think someone that everybody wants to hear and learn more about is Khaman Maluach. I think the potential is undeniable. It's just there and it's in your face every time you get to see him, either in practice clips or obviously in games even more so. So looking specifically at him, his growth as a screener, how have you kind of assessed where he was when he first got to you all and how he's kind of grown by way of some of the skill development pieces you hit on?
Yeah, you can see it game by game, practice by practice, just his growth on a daily basis. And a lot of that stuff is done obviously on the court, but is done in film as well. He's a guy that you can show film to, talk about it, he'll ask questions, and you see carryover from game to game in that stuff. I think what you had just said about the first time he played with till that last game he had played with us in Texas, it's taken big steps, specifically with that screening of how to screen, the nuances of reading the on-ball defender, knowing when to stick a screen, knowing when to roll it, how to play into the pocket and slow himself down and kind of find his feet to make solid decisions in there. So I think it's just a thing that he's been doing a lot of repetitions in that in practice with the Suns, and then for him to come down and work on that in a live setting and get some film to grow and watch in that area has helped him a ton.
And then kind of to that point, I think something Coach Ott has spoken to, and I think other players that he's spent time with have spoken to as well, is high-level communication. Not just being loud, but also kind of being early with what commands he is giving out from that anchor spot. How have you seen that have impact for the successes he has seen defensively?
Yeah, it's a significant piece. This summer when he was still playing pickup, he was new to the Suns, obviously. He was doing that stuff already at a high level. He naturally has a great energy, a great outlook on the game. So that piece wasn't a piece that we had to like really foster and get out of him, because he naturally is loud when he gets on the floor. So I think it was just more so about recognizing situations for him. Like for any young player, I think initial action is something that you kind of work on and you can recognize and you get accustomed to very quickly. But as a possession grows, it's about recognizing the action after that initial one, and how can I use my communication to communicate, whether it's pick and roll, whether it's off ball, whether it's my X5 protect coming over if there's a drive. So for him, it was really just about recognizing that, where he is on the floor, how the possession is growing, and how to be effective with his communication, like you said.
And someone we've seen get minutes on the Suns level now, obviously has spent a lot of time with you as well, is Rashir Fleming. I think one of the biggest things that stood out to me from him coming from college was that he had the ability to guard fives and be able to flip those into switches and play to a switching scheme like that. I feel like we saw him do that with you all recently against Charles Bassey, and then we've seen him do it with the Suns recently as well. Having a wing that has not just the wingspan and size to be physical with the five, but also kind of flip things into switches for defense. How are you seeing that kind of potential for him really just kind of take him in a good direction?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. Super versatile as a defender, especially at the G League level. Can really guard 1 through 5, but in the NBA games, does the same thing. With him, it was all about just being solid with his fundamentals defensively, not putting himself out of position, making sure his disposition initially in possessions is where it needs to be so that he's not forcing himself into tough closeouts or being late to action. But the special thing about him is because he's so naturally gifted, even if he has a breakdown, he doesn't stop playing. And typically 9 times out of 10, he's recovering on that possession and getting a deflection at the rim or getting his hand on a ball as a drive is happening. So obviously we want to stay out of those situations as much as possible. But I think his growth has taken off from game 1 to where he's at now. And I think he's got obviously more steps that he'll take before this year's over.
And then kind of to the point of some of the physical tools you spoke to, it feels like he has an opportunity to get his hand on offensive rebounds or just 50-50 situations that most people don't always have the chance to do. For him specifically with tagging up, how do you see his potential kind of align with having that offensive rebounding process to kind of play to?
Yeah, he's really done a good job of building healthy habits of continually going. I know in some of our games he hasn't necessarily come up with 6 offensive rebounds every game, but there's been games where he's had tip outs and another guy got it. I think as of late, you're seeing it in some of the Suns games as well, as his ability to just go get the basketball. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Like, yes, we want to continually build those habits to make sure you are tagging because we know what it does to our transition defense and all of those things. But sometimes you just got to go get that thing off the rim, and he has the ability to go do that.
And then kind of last one with Rashir, on the offensive side, looking at him as a screener feels like that's something he did a lot at St. Joe's as well. With him in that particular realm, how have you seen kind of some of his ability to just kind of get into those screen unders, stay unders, play into the short roll and make decisions from there?
Yeah, I think he's definitely grown in that. He's has a heightened awareness from where he initially was when he was a first game with us of how to get into those, how to find those. I think he's still recognizing like the nuance of it to really create a solid advantage. But he's grown in it. You know, we tried to tie some of our ATO designs around their intentions, and obviously, like you said, that's one of Rashir's is to be a good low-angle screener and create advantages like that. So I think he's growing in it. I think he has a ton of room to continue to grow in that, and then the better he can get with his decision-making when he catches that thing in the pocket, it'll just open up their offense to another level.
Someone else the fans are loving to hear about and watch progress is Kobe Brea. I think he naturally has a top-tier skill that comes with getting attention. Chicks love the long ball in baseball. Chicks love, guys being able to shoot the 3-ball that well. When you look at him specifically, though, pairing that skill with pick and roll reads, how have you seen him grow there?
Yeah, he's definitely taken a lot of steps. As of late, kind of the second half of the season since our Showcase Cup, he really simplified the game for himself, and I think that's why he's shooting the ball at a higher clip right now. He's always been able to find shots as far as attempts per game go and things like that, but just simplifying stuff off the ball for himself and really hunting catch and shoot shots has created advantages in closeout situations for him and has allowed him to show some of that playmaking stuff off. And then his secondary stuff off of second side actions, sometimes as an initiator, he has a natural ability and a good pace to his game to really slow himself down and make some of those tight window passes. So I think he's continuing to grow in that area. But yeah, we know ultra skilled, creates a ton of gravity for our entire group that put him in situations to be successful as the game goes.
And then when you look at just his general developmental arc, what are you maybe looking for from him down this home stretch of your season going into potential playoff play to kind of hit home on his skill development?
Yeah, I think defense is the biggest thing for Kobe. Whether it's individually guarding in space, whether it's pick and roll, small, 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 big. I think he's gotten pretty good with his off-ball positioning and really good in his pinches and his plugs and shrinking the floor. So that next layer for him is being able to guard the basketball in space. And he's aware of it. He knows he needs to get better in that area. So it's something that we'll continue to watch with him, continue to work on with him in practice, and hopefully he takes steps here in this last stretch.
And then getting to someone that kind of made some waves of news themselves, getting back to the two-way contract realm and CJ Huntley. One thing that's always stood out with him is kind of the speed at which he gets out of his roles and puts pressure on the rim, kind of similar to how Oso does. How have you seen that particular skill for him translate and now provide impact for him?
Yeah, I think his motor, both in the half court and the full court, was something that set him apart from day one with just how hard he played. So for him, is really recognizing kind of same thing as Khaman, is recognizing spacing and how to slow myself up to stick a screen and reading that on-ball defender to know when to run roll if he opens his hips and things like that. So just the nuances of the game, the nuances of screening, because we know the energy and the effort part, he naturally plays with that, and he really prides himself on that.
And then similar to with Khaman, feels like CJ can also exist with another big on the court because of his versatility on both ends, particularly on offense as a spacer with being able to shoot but also handle it. How do you see that potential for him going forward?
Yeah, we've experimented with that a few times down here as of late in Texas. Obviously, we started those two together, played a majority of the game with those two together. And I think the shooting piece is his swing skill. He showed small doses of it in college. I think he 2 attempts a game, 3 attempts a game, maybe around 35, 36%. So we knew that was in there, knew that was an area we could grow with him. And I think the more he can dive into that, the more he can understand how to space at that position. It's definitely a swing skill for him. But I think the other piece that's underrated with him is his ability to be kind of a connector and find after actions in a different way than your traditional 4 smalls out there with a center. So having a guy like him who you can play flash through, you can play get game, he can set random flares throughout the course of a possession, and he's getting a good feel for that, good feel for how to do it, when to do it, and really recognize different spacing situations as a possession goes.
And the last one for you, Coach, before we close things out, just in general, kind of zooming out and just looking at everything at large, is there anything in particular that you wanted to highlight or speak to for fans that are watching your team?
Yeah, I think just the overall commitment that the entire group has had. Obviously, from when you look at a win-loss record, it hasn't gone the exact direction that we wanted it to this year. But that has not changed the environment of our gym throughout any day, any stretch of the season. The way these guys have approached every single day and getting better individually and collectively has been – it's honestly been kind of astounding to see because when you go through those stretches where you lose a few, whether it's a stretch of games of a week or a month where you're not playing as well as you want, it's natural human behavior for maybe a little bit of emotion to dip down, but these guys have approached it the right way every time. Every film session they've been super involved in, super communicative with, asking questions, wanting to know more information. And then when we get on the court, they have just a tremendous presence amongst the group. So it's been a joy to coach these guys up to this point, and I'm excited to close out the rest of the season with this group.
Valley Suns head coach Paul Jesperson, Stephen PridGeon-Garner, PHNX Sports, thank you so much. Talk to y'all soon.